Warning. This is a news alert about your everyday coffee.
Today we are counting down the 8 coffee brands with hidden risks that could threaten your heart and your health, especially for seniors and for teenagers who drink coffee every day. From bargain blends loaded with chemicals to trusted cafe favorites, masking dangerous contaminants, these picks are far more common than most people realize. Stay until the end. We will reveal 2 rare brands that actually test clean.
We are exposing 8 brands to avoid.
Which everyday brand kicks off our countdown at number 8? Nescafe's red label is a fixture in kitchens from Manila to Madrid, trusted for over 80 years and sold in more than 180 countries. That trust is familiar, but instant coffee, for all its convenience, comes with risks that rarely make it onto the label. The beans behind that familiar jar are often sourced from massive commodity lots, blended from dozens of origins, and stored for months in humid warehouses, prime conditions for mold growth. When storage slips, so does safety. Mold toxins like aflatoxin B1, a group 1 carcinogen, and acrylamide A, linked to kidney damage, can form on green coffee beans. Roasting and instant processing reduce some of these toxins, but not all. Regulators in Europe and Asia have blocked or recalled instant coffee shipments for mycotoxin contamination over the last decade, underscoring a real, if hidden, hazard in the supply chain. Yet most brands, including Nescafe, do not publish batch-level test results, leaving consumers in the dark. Seniors, whose livers are less resilient, face higher risks from chronic exposure. And with instant coffee dissolving almost suspiciously fast and carrying a sharp, almost burnt aroma, it is easy to forget what is really inside each cup. If you have relied on that red label for years, it might be time to question what is behind the trust. Drop a comment if Nescafe has been your go-to. Wait until you see what premium Italian tins hide. Lavazza's metallic tins and Italian branding have long promised a touch of European luxury on supermarket shelves. But behind the elegant packaging, non-organic Lavazza blends carry invisible risks, ones that cannot be seen or tasted. European consumer testing over the past decade has repeatedly found that non-organic supermarket coffees often contain traces of pesticides and acrylamide A, a mold toxin that survives roasting and has been linked to kidney damage. These residues typically fall below legal limits, yet they are still present in the final product, hiding in cups poured from even the most expensive tins. Pesticides used in conventional coffee farming, like chlorpyrifos and endosulfan, are known for their developmental and hormonal effects. During pregnancy, even low-level exposure is a concern, as some of these chemicals can cross the placenta and reach the developing fetus. Acrylamide A, classified as possibly carcinogenic, is especially troubling for anyone with a history of cancer or compromised kidney function. Chronic exposure, even at low doses, adds up over time. Despite the premium price, Lavazza does not publish batch-level test results for contaminants. There is no way for consumers to know the exact farm, harvest year, or chemical profile of what is inside each tin. Buying a non-organic blend becomes a kind of coffee roulette, every cup a gamble on what is lurking beneath the surface. The disconnect between luxury branding and hidden residues raises questions about what we are really paying for. If you have ever reached for a European tin thinking it guaranteed quality, share your experience below. Not all that glitters is gold. Sometimes it is just another layer of packaging hiding what really matters. Folgers is a name that echoes through American kitchens. Its red can a symbol of morning routines and family gatherings for generations. But behind the nostalgia, Folgers today is a different brew than many remember. The label on most supermarket Folgers cans reveals a list that goes beyond coffee beans. Maltodextrin, silicon dioxide, and natural flavors appear alongside ground coffee, especially in instant varieties. These additives are all recognized as safe by regulators, but they quietly break the promise of pure, unadulterated coffee. Maltodextrin, a processed starch, helps control texture and solubility. Silicon dioxide keeps the powder from clumping in humid pantries. Natural flavors can mean almost anything, and the company is not required to specify the source. For those who grew up thinking coffee meant just roasted beans and water, this ingredient list is a wake-up call. Folgers mainstream blends lean heavily on Robusta beans, a cheaper, higher caffeine variety that lowers costs but sacrifices the nuanced flavors of Arabica. The package rarely tells you where the beans came from or how much Robusta is inside. This lack of transparency is common among big brands, but it is especially striking for a label so closely tied to tradition. Independent audits of ingredient lists and commodity pricing reports confirm that Robusta dominance and undisclosed additives are standard in many budget coffees. While none of these ingredients are outright banned, they reshape the idea of what is in your cup. If you have ever poured Folgers thinking it was just coffee, take a closer look at the fine print. Next item on this list takes processing a step further, trading beans for sugar and cream in a bottle. Starbucks bottled Frappuccino lines up in coolers everywhere, dressed in the familiar green mermaid and promising a taste of the cafe on the go. But what is inside these bottles has less in common with coffee and more with dessert. Flip the label, and one bottle typically packs 30 to 50 grams of added sugar, rivaling or even beating a can of soda. That is not just a sweet treat. It is a direct hit to blood sugar and heart health, especially for seniors and anyone watching their metabolic numbers. For teens, this combination of caffeine and high sugar can spike energy, then crash it, fueling habits that are hard to break. The ingredient list tells the story. Milk and sugar come before coffee, with stabilizers and flavors trailing behind. Each sip delivers a metabolic jolt, raising insulin and stressing the cardiovascular system in ways black coffee never could. FDA nutrition labels make it plain, but the branding buries the dessert reality under a coffeehouse image. Cardiologists and nutritionists warn that regular consumption of sugary drinks like these increases the risk of diabetes, weight gain, and heart disease over time. If bottled Frappuccino is your go-to, try swapping it for unsweetened cold brew or a homemade iced coffee with just a splash of milk. The difference is not just in taste, it is in what your body has to handle long after the bottle is empty. Keurig's K-Cup revolution turned coffee into a single-button ritual. But the real story is what happens inside that plastic pod. Each K-Cup is built from a polypropylene shell, sealed with an aluminum foil lid, and lined with a paper filter. When you press brew, near boiling water, about 192 degrees Fahrenheit, rushes through the pod, extracting flavor and caffeine in seconds. But the heat does not just touch the coffee grounds. It also interacts with the plastic walls and adhesives, creating a pathway for chemicals called plasticizers, like pH phthalates, to migrate from the pod into your drink. Independent lab studies and NGO testing have flagged this brewing method as a source of packaging-related contaminants. While Keurig's newer pods are marketed as BPA-free, that is only part of the story. Phthalates and other plasticizers, which are not always listed or regulated, have been detected in finished coffee from single-serve pods. These chemicals are known endocrine disruptors, linked in scientific literature to hormonal imbalances, developmental problems, and increased risk of some cancers. That is especially concerning for pregnant women and for people with underlying health conditions. Microplastics are another emerging concern. Research on hot plastic beverage containers shows that tiny plastic particles can break free under high temperatures. And while the exact numbers for K-Cups at 192 degrees Fahrenheit have not been fully published, studies on similar packaging warn that daily exposure is possible. Seniors and people with compromised kidney function are especially vulnerable, as these contaminants can accumulate over time. For anyone relying on the convenience of pods, the risk is not about what is in the coffee, it is about what is leaching in from the packaging. Choosing whole beans and brewing with glass, ceramic, or stainless steel equipment can cut out this exposure route entirely. The next brand on the list brings the focus back to what is inside the cup, the economics of cheap coffee, and what it means for quality and safety. Great value. Coffee sits on Walmart shelves at a price that seems almost impossible, sometimes less than $4 a pound. That bargain comes with a hidden cost most shoppers never see. To keep prices low, Great Value and other store brands source beans from massive commodity pools, blending crops from multiple countries and harvests. The packaging rarely reveals any farm names or harvest years, and there is no mention of how those beans were grown or stored. This anonymity matters. Independent lab testing, including over 7,000 samples from the Clean Label Project, shows that heavy metals like lead and cadmium show up in nearly all coffees, but the levels swing much wider in the cheapest blends. The reason is simple. Sourcing from lower-cost regions often means less oversight on soil quality and storage, raising the odds that beans pick up metals from contaminated ground or old warehouses. Lead and cadmium do not add flavor, but they do build up in the body over time. Seniors, whose kidneys and livers work harder to filter toxins, are especially at risk from daily, low-dose exposure. Chronic intake of these metals has been linked to higher rates of hypertension, kidney damage, and cognitive decline. For shoppers trying to stretch a budget, the appeal is clear, but the savings may not be worth the long-term risk. Swapping to organic, single-origin beans, even at a slightly higher price, can cut exposure and offer more transparency. When it comes to what you drink every day, the real value is not just on the price tag. Every morning, drive-through lines snake around McDonald's, with millions of commuters and teens reaching for a steaming cup of McCafe. On the surface, it's just another affordable coffee, familiar, fast, and everywhere. But few realize that every cup brewed in a chain restaurant or snapped into a K-cup machine at home delivers more than caffeine. Coffee roasting naturally creates acrylamide, a chemical classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as a probable human carcinogen. The hotter and faster the roast, the more acrylamide can form, and large-scale commercial roasting often aims for consistency over nuance. Fast food chains, including McDonald's, rarely publish lab results for acrylamide or other contaminants, leaving customers guessing about what is in their daily fix. Independent testing across dozens of brands shows a pattern. Canned and value coffees, and many single-serve pods, tend to show higher acrylamide ranges than carefully sourced whole beans. While regulators say typical coffee drinking is not linked to a measurable cancer spike, the science behind acrylamide is clear. Chronic exposure in animals causes cancer and nerve damage. Daily drive-through habits, especially for teens and busy adults, can quietly stack up that risk, cup after cup. And with McCafe's popularity among young people and seniors alike, the stakes reach beyond taste. The real problem is not just the chemical, it is the lack of transparency. Without published test data, there is no way to know if what you are drinking is closer to a safe benchmark or pushing the upper edge. For anyone concerned about long-term health, the safest bet is to skip chain coffee for organic, whole bean options brewed at home. When it comes to acrylamide, what you don't know can add up fast. Tim Hortons is more than a coffee brand in Canada. It is a national ritual, woven into daily routines from coast to coast. For decades, people trusted that familiar cup, believing it stood for consistency, comfort, and quality. But in 2014, the story changed. Tim Hortons was bought out by Restaurant Brands International, a global conglomerate known for squeezing costs across its fast food empire. Almost overnight, franchisees and longtime customers started to notice differences. Complaints about weaker brews, blander beans, and a creeping sense that quality was taking a back seat to the bottom line began to spread. News outlets reported on franchisees protesting changes to sourcing and roasting, but the company stayed quiet on the details. Behind the counter, the supply chain grew more opaque. The label on a Tim Hortons cup still hints at a blend of Arabica beans, but there is no way to trace the origin of a single batch, no public disclosure of contaminant testing, and no certificate of analysis for acrylamide or mycotoxins. For a brand that serves millions every day, seniors on morning walks, teens grabbing a caffeine fix, and families on road trips, the lack of transparency is not just a technicality. It is a breach of trust at a massive scale. With no way to see what is really in your cup, every sip becomes a leap of faith. This is not just about nostalgia or national pride. When a company this large refuses to show its work, consumers are left in the dark about potential contaminants that accumulate over years, especially for those most at risk, like older adults and people with chronic health concerns. The promise of Tim Hortons was always more than just coffee. Now, with batch-level data hidden and cost-cutting driving decisions, that promise rings hollow. If you care about what you are drinking, demand more. Ask for real transparency. Do not let a national icon hide behind its own legend. Purity Coffee stands out in a crowded field for what is in the bag and what is not. Independent lab results published by Mamavation in 2024 showed Purity's whole beans had no detectable levels of over 500 pesticides, mycotoxins, mold, and yeast. That is rare transparency in an industry where most brands keep their testing private. For anyone who has spent years worrying about invisible contaminants, these numbers are a breath of fresh air. The beans themselves are organic, single origin, and roasted with careful attention to temperature, aiming to keep acrylamide as low as possible, without sacrificing flavor. But there is a catch. Purity's popular Ease single-serve sachets, those convenient teabag-style packets, showed 187 parts per million of organic fluorine in the packaging. That is a marker for PFAS, a group of chemicals known as forever chemicals, because they persist in the environment and in the body. While the coffee inside the sachet tested clean, the packaging itself introduces a new variable for anyone seeking a truly toxin-free cup. This is the nuance behind the clean label. Not all formats are created equal, and even the best beans can pick up risks from their packaging. For those prioritizing health, Purity's whole bean and ground coffee options remain among the most rigorously tested on the market. Still, it pays to check not just the beans, but the packaging too. As more brands move toward full transparency, the standard for what counts as clean coffee is rising, and Purity's open lab results help set that bar. In the world of specialty coffee, Life Boost stands apart for what it leaves out as much as what it puts in. Every bag starts with single-origin beans grown on small farms in Nicaragua, where high-altitude microclimates and careful handpicking help keep mold and pests in check from the start. Unlike mass-market blends that combine beans from dozens of countries, every batch of Life Boost coffee comes from a single region and harvest, reducing the risk of hidden contaminants slipping through, ensuring single-region sourcing. The roasting process is slow and gentle, designed to keep the acid content low, a key factor for anyone with acid reflux, sensitive stomachs, or a history of digestive issues. Low acid is intentional. Independent third-party labs test for mycotoxins, pesticides, and heavy metals, and the brand shares summaries of those results, giving consumers a rare window into what is really in the cup. Third-party testing is published. Functional medicine doctors and nutritionists often recommend Life Boost for people who want coffee's benefits without the side effects or the uncertainty. Recommended by many practitioners. There are no artificial flavors, no fillers, and no additives, just pure beans, roasted and shipped fresh. Pure, transparent coffee. For those who care about every detail, from farm to mug, Life Boost offers a way to enjoy coffee with peace of mind. Peace of mind matters. If you have been searching for a brew that is gentle on your body and transparent about its testing, this is the one to try. Gentle on your system and clear about testing. Let us know if you have made the switch, or if you have noticed the difference in how you feel after your morning cup. Across all 10 brands, one truth stands out. Major coffee names are not always safer, and shortcuts in sourcing or processing can load your cup with hidden chemicals. Every routine sip is a reminder. Health is not guaranteed by reputation or by price. In today's market, transparency is rare and vigilance is essential. Your daily coffee is a choice with real impact. Which brand do you trust most? Let us know below.